Hello everyone, we're leaving Patagonia behind for a while and we're heading north of the country, to the province of Misiones. This part of the country is famous for its dense rainforests, its ruins, and for being home of the yerba mate, Argentina's most common and traditional drink. It's also home of the mighty and unmatched Iguazu Falls, but the waterfalls will have their own episode. Contenido en 3. Our first destination in the province will be Posadas, Misiones' largest and capital city. We'll be base camping here as we explore the surrounding area. The city itself is gorgeous, with amazing views of the Paraná River. On our first day, we went to visit Estancia Sante Ines, a century-old estate run by its owners. Good morning everyone, we've come today to the Estancia Sante Ines, which is a very ancient branch just outside Posadas, the capital of the province of Misiones. It's a place full of history and nature, so we're going to explore this place. It's set in the middle of the jungle in an incredible natural environment, and it has of course lots of yerba mate plantation. As you may know, mate is a huge deal in the Argentinian culture. So we're going now into the jungle. This is our guide, Lou. Lou, you can say hi. So she's gonna show us around the place. It's actually quite nice. And we need some shade, it's very hot. Even though it's winter, it's very, very hot. Here you can get to see how's the true environment of this region. Huge trees all over the place, with howling monkeys living up in the higher branches. It's actually very easy to get lost in here. This is a yerba mate tree. This is how it looks like when it grows in the jungle. It's actually where it belongs, not in the plantations. So we've come now to this huge building we have behind us. It used to be a yerba mate dryer, is that right? Me están tomando acá examen. What they usually do is prune the trees. They take all the leaves and of course not all the leaves but most of them. They bring them in here, they store them and they let them dry. It takes quite a while. It depends on the quality of the packaging and the quality of the produce. They leave it for a year or two or maybe 90 days in some cases. But this is what it looks like. This is not working anymore, but this is what they used to look like. On the next day, we decided to go visit the ruins of San Ignacio. San Ignacio, it's a town not too far away from Posadas, and it's home to the most famous ruins in the country. On the 17th century, the order of the Jesuits arrived to this lands. They started spreading the gospel around the natives, the Guaraní tribe, and founded several towns, or as they called them, missions, where the Jesuits and the Guaraní lived peacefully for 150 years. So we're now in the main square of the old town. The Jesuits, you may not know, but were a not only religious but also military order. Its founder, St. Ignatius, was a soldier before being a priest. So there's a lot of military involved. Those houses here were for the young Aboriginals that were training for the army that would also office as police in the town. So they used to live here before they got married. Then in the main front you have the church and the Jesuits' houses. So that's the church. That door on the left is where the Jesuits used to live. So I'm now standing in front of the church, that's right behind me. The only part left is the facade. We lost all the ceiling, and there used to be a bell tower on the right side. It's also gone, of course, but the colour is quite particular because it's the colour of the soil here. This is all local stone, and because of the extreme concentration of iron in the soil, all the rocks are dyed in that orange reddish colour. If you see the facade, you'll realise that's a very old form of Baroque. That's because the Jesuits knew the art very well, but this was built by the natives that a few years before they built this, they were living like nomads in the jungle. They did a huge improvement in their skills, I must say, but they didn't domain it quite yet. Even if you see the angels up there, you'll see that they have a different face. They have a face of a native, what natives would look like. And if you come here, you'll see the inscription. This is an A and an M, which means Ave Maria. So I told you how these places got to be. There's 15 of this across Argentina, Brazil and Paraguay. This is one of the best kept. So as I said, this was the frontier between the Spanish and the Portuguese empires. The Spanish considered the Guaraní people to be, people with soul. The whole question was if they had a soul or they didn't. And the Spanish believed they did, but they weren't, of the same dignity as the European. The Portuguese, on the other side, they thought that they didn't even have a soul and they could be enslaved and taken to plantations to work until they die. So there was a huge dilemma between the two of them, and of course the Guaraní didn't want to live under the Portuguese rule, so they started fleeing through the jungle, and back then the Jesuits offered them some asylum, some refuge to hide somehow from the Portuguese. Not only that, the Jesuits also taught the Guaraní people to fight with gunfire. They felt a lot more, safe living amongst the Jesuits other than out in the jungle. So they lived here since the missions were founded in 1623 until the Jesuits were expelled. Through that time, maybe 3-4 generations passed, or even a bit more. They developed, the first Guaraní were offered refuge, but they didn't have to convert into Christianity. But as time went by, they started to convert themselves willingly, not pushed by anyone. So the first generation that used to live in the jungle moved here, they had kids, they prospered, they learned different jobs, smithing, cultivating the land, and typical jobs of that time. And then the second generation, the one that was born in the missions, they didn't know what was life outside. So they felt very comfortable here, and they respected and they looked up to the Jesuit order, to the Jesuit rule. They were very happy with it. So they started converting into Christianity. These places were actually very much civilized. The Jesuits came to found these missions with the objective, of course, of gospel, but also to develop what it would be called a perfect society. So this is the one that's missing on the front, on the facade, as you can see, as the Jesuit emblem. IHS, Jesu hominem salvatore, which means Jesus, Savior of men in Latin. And you have the cross on top, and underneath the H you have the three nails of the cross. So the end of the story is a very sad one. After 150 years in America, the Jesuits had become very powerful, and they were in a very good position, not only because of the wealth, but because of the influence they had on the natives. And they used to live like a country within a country. They had no influence from Spain. They would disobeying the crown, and they were doing whatever they wanted. They were, like an independent country within the Spanish Empire. And of course the crown didn't like this, and they've been having a lot of troubles with the Portuguese in Brazil. So in 1767, I think, the Spanish crown decided to expel the Jesuits from its colonies, and they all had to leave, and without the Jesuits to look after this place. This was, like an easy target for the Portuguese looking for slaves among the Guaraní people. Most of the Guaraníes fled to the cities down south or into the jungle. After the years, this fell to disuse, and there was no one to look after for it because the Jesuits were gone. The Guaraní didn't want to stay here because they didn't have the Jesuits to protect them, and they left as well. And this was left for nature to do its job for 300 years before the Argentinian government decided to save this place. It was an author at the beginning of the century, the 20th century, that first came here, sent by the government to study the Jesuit ruins, and he found this place in a lot worse state than what you see now. His name was Horacio Quiroga. He was a writer and a photographer, and you can see the pictures he took on his first trips to San Ignacio. It was thanks to the Jesuits that the Guaraní culture survived to our days. Their language and traditions are well alive, and some, like mate, have spread all across the country and are now a core part of the national identity. The land of the missions came to be known as the land without evil. Both Jesuits and Guaraní learned from each other and created a thriving civilization that lived in peace and harmony for 150 years. If you want to learn more about the Jesuits, I strongly recommend watching the 1986 movie The Mission, with Robert De Niro, Jeremy Irons, and a very young Liam Neeson. You may be wondering what happened with the Jesuits after they were sacked from the Spanish Empire. The order didn't disappear and still exists until today. I'm sure you're familiarized with the face of this man, right? Pope Francis is not only Argentinian, but he's also a Jesuit. Does this ring a bell? Yup, that's the Jesuit emblem on the Pope's coat of arms, the same emblem we see in the ruins of San Ignacio. From being expelled to the head of the Catholic Church, the Jesuits certainly had a great comeback. As I always say, thank you very much for watching. Please don't forget to hit the subscribe button, leave a like, and if you have any comments or questions you may want to do, you can leave them on the comment section. And please, if you want to see more content like this, you can follow me on Instagram and @InsiderArgentina.